Hello everyone, and welcome to another instalment of Jono's Graveyard Jaunts. If anybody mentions the word shipwreck, we are indelibly drawn towards the tragic and infamous loss of the Titanic that sank on its maiden voyage on April the 15th, 1912. Where after hitting an iceberg, the ship was sadly lost, and the Titanic, as we all know, was considered to be unsinkable at the time. Now, Leicester itself has a fascinating link to the RMS Titanic, and that link is a man by the name of Denzil J. Jarvis. Although not actually born in Leicester, Denzil spent most of his life there developing the business, where he eventually became a managing partner in a company that would become Wadkin Engineering. Now, Denzil himself was one of 17 children born in Monmouthshire on the 17th of June 1864 at the Line in Caerleon in Wales. And then family moved from Wales to Birmingham, primarily for work reasons, and then again to Leicester, where the family lived for about 20 years in the same house. When Denzil was 14 years old, he became an apprentice to his father. Denzil himself was very ambitious and sought to further his education from an early age. He gained qualifications in freehand drawing, building construction, drawing and design. He excelled in these disciplines and in turn won a first-class award in building construction. Denzil met and subsequently married a lady by the name of Margaret Burrows in Leicester on the 7th of February 1889. They had two sons together, Denzil Jr., their first son, who was born on the 1st of July 1893, and the second son, Wesley, who was born on the 15th of August 1895. And this picture of Denzil and Margaret's sons was taken in 1912, when Denzil Jr. was aged 18, and he's sitting down in the photograph, and Wesley is on the right and he was 16 and he's standing up. Now, Wesley himself served in World War I and attained the rank of corporal. He was sadly to lose his life at the Battle of Passchendaele in 1917, aged just 22 years. Margaret's nephew, Benjamin Burrows, would become the esteemed musical composer. Now, Denzil developed his own business, Denzil John Jarvis and Company, and they were shop fitters and they were based in Leicester. Over the years, Denzil became increasingly involved with his brother-in-law, Joseph Wadkin, who in turn had established his own company, Wadkins, in Leicester, and they specialised in making woodworking machinery. Joseph and Denzil in turn collaborated a lot, making use of Denzil's specialist engineering skills. Denzil subsequently joined Wadkins as a managing partner, and as the business evolved, Joseph, Wadkin and Denzil had very different ideas in terms of how they wanted the business to develop. Denzil wanted to move more towards an engineering manufacturing base with the subsequent emergence of the motor car industry in mind, whereas Joseph wanted to continue making woodworking machinery. And this subsequently led to the partnership between the two being dissolved. Denzil was now collaborating with a highly skilled Greek engineer, a man by the name of Alexander George Ionedes, who on the 26th of January 1909 filled out a patent for a carburetor. By 1912, Denzil had emerged as a high-profile businessman and lived at the Crest, which was 360 London Road, a large 12-room property in the highly prestigious and very affluent suburb of Stonygate in Leicestershire. And as we look at the photograph, the Crest is the property on the right hand side, number 360, and 358 is identical, and they were both built in 1902, and they subsequently amalgamated to form the Regency Hotel, which still exists to this present day. The Titanic had the world's richest people on it at the time. The cream of the crop, the 1% of the 1%, the Astors, the Vanderbilts, Guggenheims, Wideners, etc. On the 10th of April 1912, Denzil, after purchasing his second class ticket for £13, ticket number 237565, boarded the Titanic at Southampton. And this is the actual picture that was taken on April the 10th 1912 of the Titanic moored at Southampton Dock shortly before departure. And this is the image that would have greeted Denzil on that fateful day. And the subsequent picture is the Titanic leaving Southampton Dock on April the 10th. Now, Denzil was going to America for a 6-week business trip, really for two reasons. He had a prototype design of the patent of the Ionedes Carburettor that he designed in conjunction with Alexander George Ionedes, and Denzil's company themselves actually manufactured. He was going to present both Henry Ford and General Motors Corporation in Detroit, Michigan, the design, and hoping to procure a very lucrative contract. Now, bear in mind that the Model T was launched in 1908 and went on to sell 15 million units. Now, had Denzil gotten to Michigan and procured a contract, it would have made him an extremely wealthy man. He was also going to see a company in Grand Rapids, Michigan, for patent infringement. The day before the sinking, on April the 14th, there were two sightings of Denzil on board the ship. And the first one was on the afternoon of Sunday the 14th of April, when Denzil was overheard by a passenger who survived the sinking asking Stuart Kellard how he should describe the patent on the carburetor on his baggage declaration slip. And the second one was when the survivor of the disaster, Lawrence Beasley, comments on the iceberg, and Denzil is quoted as saying, "Well, I'm accustomed to estimating distance, and I put it at between 80 and 90 feet." Denzil died on the Titanic at 47 years old, and if his body, if it was ever recovered, was never identified. He left an estate valued at £7,704 to Margaret. We are in the beautiful churchyard of St Mary Magdalene Church, in a very affluent suburb of Knighton in Leicestershire. And this is where, shortly after Denzil's tragic loss on the Titanic, Margaret, his widow, had a black cross erected in his memory, because his body, as I say, was never actually recovered, or if indeed recovered, was never identified. And as you know, Wesley, his son, also died at the tender age of 22 at the Battle of Passchendaele in 1917, and there is an inscription on there dedicated to his memory. And Margaret was to follow him in 1934 when she eventually passed away, and she'd married a boot manufacturer, a shoe and boot manufacturer, and acquired the surname Heath. So we're just going to go up to the black iron Celtic cross that was erected in his memory, and we'll read the inscription on it. And here we are, guys, this is it itself. So this was erected shortly after his memory, so we'll just zoom in so we can read the inscription. Erected in beloved memory of Denzil Jarvis, who was lost in the wreck of the Titanic, 15th of April 1912, age 47. Also Margaret Heath, that was his widow, devoted wife of James Wedgwood Heath, a new partner, who fell asleep May the 1st, 1934. He is interred in this place, and this is the tribute to the young Wesley, who sadly lost his life at 22 years old. In proud and loving memory of Wesley, second son of the above, who died in France of wounds. Killed, I think that says, what does it say there? In action, October 31st, 1917, age 22. He passed from the sight of those who loved him along the path of I don't know, there's obviously some lettering this in there. Rest in peace to all of you. Wesley, thank you for your service, making the ultimate sacrifice. Denzil, Margaret and Wesley, all reunited. Rest in peace.